Bahamas, and welcome back to another episode of The Island's Dilemmas, the show where we tackle the toughest moral questions shaping our society. I am Tanovia DeVoe, joined by my co-host,
Ali Turner. Tonight, we're diving deep into a topic that touches families, workplaces, and communities across the island. Should individuals with a criminal record be excluded from employment opportunities?
We're talking about second chances and how far they should go. Is it fair to judge someone forever for one mistake? Or does the public safety come first?
To get us started, let's consider a story many Bahamians might relate to. There's a man named Kendall, a 32-year-old mechanic who once got in a fight outside a club that turned violent. The other man was hospitalized with a broken jaw, and Kendall served 2 years for aggravated assault. After completing anger management and community service, he's ready to move on, but no one will hire him because of his record. Then there's Shanique, a 24-year-old single mother who was arrested 3 years ago for marijuana possession with intent to supply. At the time, she was struggling to provide for her young child and began selling small amounts just to make ends meet. She served 6 months in the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services and later completed a rehabilitation and job readiness program through the Ministry of Social Services. Since her release, she stayed clean, volunteers at her church, and has applied to over a dozen jobs, but each time, her criminal record becomes the barrier. Two very different stories, but one dilemma. Should society forgive and employ them, or keep them out of the workforce to protect others?
Joining us today to explore the issue are our special guests, Ms. Celine Hanna, a bioethics expert, Ms. Shelby Gardner, a rehabilitation officer, and Ms. Brandy Oliver, an HR manager with experience in corporate hiring.
So Celine, let's start with you. There's an ethical tension here between protecting society and giving people a fair shot at redemption. What do bioethics principles tell us?
Thank you, Allery. This dilemma involves several key principles. First, there's justice, ensuring fairness and equality. If someone has served their sentence, continuing to punish them by denying employment could be unjust. Then we have autonomy, the right of individuals to rebuild their lives and make independent choices. But there's also beneficence, which asks us to act for the good of society and non-maleficence, meaning we should avoid harm. Employers fear hiring someone who may reoffend, which complicates things. Ethically, virtue ethics reminds us to cultivate compassion and forgiveness, while deontology emphasizes our duty to uphold laws and moral rules. A consequentialist might ask, what outcome benefits society most? And research often shows that stable employment reduces the likelihood of reoffending.
So it's not just about the person's past, but the impact on the community at large. Like Kendall, whose one mistake in a bar fight still defines him years later, or Shanique, who's trying to rebuild her life after serving time for marijuana possession.
Exactly. From an ethical standpoint, both cases challenge how we apply justice and beneficence. Shanique's actions were wrong, but she has shown genuine reform. Excluding her now ignores care ethics, which calls for the empathy and understanding of the conditions that led her to her choices. Denying employment might feel protective, but it can lead to hopelessness, poverty, and higher recidivism rates, which harms society in the long run.
Yeah, that's a heavy balance. Justice versus compassion, punishment versus rehabilitation.
And that's what we see daily. Many ex-offenders genuinely want to change. When doors keep closing, some fall right back into the life of crime because they cannot survive otherwise.
So the moral question becomes, are we truly protecting society, or are we making it harder for people to become better citizens?
Oh, that's my favorite song. Let's open up the Hot Topic hotline. Tonight, we've got real Bahamians sharing their experiences.
Good night, host. My name is Troy. I did 10 years for a serious offense, sexual misconduct. I was a teacher at a local government school and had a relationship with a student. I am proud of it. I've been out 5 years now, Went to counseling, doing church, trying to rebuild. But I can't even get a job cleaning schools. It's like I serve in a life sentence even though I out.
Thank you for your honesty, Troy. That's truly a tough situation to be in.
This reflects the principle of non-maleficence. Society fears harm, especially in sensitive jobs involving children, but it also raises the question of justice. Has Troy paid his debt, or is he being punished indefinitely?
Hi, good evening. I was charged when I was around 15 years old for stealing from my first job so that I can help my mommy pay her bills. I only took around like $500, but it's still on my record. I can't even get hired as a sales assistant now.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking. You've made a mistake as a child and it's still following you to this day.
This scenario highlights care ethics, understanding context, and empathy. Her act came from desperation, not malice. From a consequentialist view, excluding her harms both her and the economy by wasting human potential.
I'm sorry, but I think people like the first caller shouldn't be in certain jobs. You can forgive someone, but you still have to protect the vulnerable.
And that's fair. So you're saying it depends on the type of crime and the type of job?
Exactly. Not everyone should work everywhere.
I think society needs to stop being so judgmental. Everyone wants people to change, but won't give them the opportunity to prove themselves. I thought the Bahamas supposed to be a Christian nation.
That's a good point. Now, to all our viewers out there, call in or message us your thoughts.
When persons are on their last leg of serving their time incarceration, they go through various classes, they are given soft skills, and then too, I know at one point they were trying to get up and running a halfway house, which I didn't think came off the ground, but it's still something that authorities are grappling with and trying to put in place to try and help ease these persons back into society. So you also have programs with big agency companies, like the wholesale food companies, who would have them on what we call work released programs. So you have persons leave the prison early in the morning at sunrise to go out to work, and then they come back once they would have knocked off from work, and that is called the work release program. And that is persons who have under 2 years left on their sentence time. So that's a way of easing them back into society.
Employment doesn't necessarily prevent crime, because there are a lot of criminals who are working, and some people who are criminals at their job. So that's not necessarily, working doesn't guarantee that you're not going to commit a crime. There's many people who have committed crimes who are fully employed. But, it's better to be idle hands at the devil's playground, as they say. And there are many examples of persons with criminal records who have made contributions to society. And you can't, for example, you can't hold back something that someone did in his youthful indiscretion 20, 30 years later. So there are many reasons, I think, why you have to give them a second chance.
So I have had several encounters with ex-cons over the last 2-3 years. What I found is that they most of the times are looking for an opportunity. They work well, but what I do is I hire them. If you got hired if you got locked up for murder or rape or some egregious crime, then that's a no-go for me. So as long as they're willing to be honest, as long as they're willing to show me that they are going to try and that they're not caught up in that gang life, or that they want to stay in the current state, I give them a second opportunity. Unfortunately, all of them have been terminated because they were still pulled to that life of crime, whether it be petty or whether it be serious. As long as they are working, as long as they stay focused and come to work, and you keep them busy, then they do good. You give them some time off, or they get caught right back up into the world that they try to leave. So for me, it's a 50-50. Would I do it in the future? I don't think I'll ever deny someone right out, but I'm gonna do a little bit more vetting in terms of what they're really into and where they want to go. And I'll definitely give someone else a chance. I don't ever see myself downright not giving someone a chance based on the fact that they're ex-con.
Some persons embrace this, what you call second chance or second opportunity to get things done right. So you do have those individuals who are able to do that, and it's not a problem. And then again, too, society accepts them, and the workplace where they are placed also accept them, knowing where they're coming from, and they're able to work with them. So you have the positive and the negative there.
I remember somebody who was acquitted on appeal. I think it's appeal. And I went to Luthra I didn't even recognize him. And I went to Luther, and he was working in the restaurant. He obviously recognized me, but I didn't recognize him. But when he introduced himself and told me who he was, I remembered the name. And basically, he thanked me for giving him an opportunity to turn his life around. And he left the environment of New Providence. And he went to Luther and found a job and was working in a restaurant. So, I don't know, that's just one example of I've known somebody who turned themselves around, who turned their lives around.
We recently conducted a national survey asking Bahamians how they feel about hiring people with criminal records. The results were quite revealing.
This survey was circulated for 10 days and received 106 responses. The participants were 71.7% female and 26.4% male, with the top demographics of 75.5% being citizens in a non-hiring role and 9.4% business owners and employers. The survey included questions such as, what factor is most relevant in an employer's final decision to hire an applicant with a record? Should there be restrictions on what job an individual with a criminal record can apply for based on their offense? And should formerly incarcerated individuals be required to disclose their past when looking for employment?
These were the general trends of the survey. In the age range of 18 to 24, around 36.8% of participants were most supportive of giving people with records a fair chance and believed jobs help reduce reoffending. In the age range of 25 to 34, around 25.5% of participants were still supportive, but were slightly more cautious about serious crimes. In the age range of 35 to 44, around 13.2% of participants were moderately supportive, more likely to think about some crimes should limit job opportunities. Around the age range of 45 to 65, around 21.6% of participants were the most cautious group, emphasizing protecting the company's reputation above all. According to the results, younger people were the most forgiving and open to second chances, while older respondents were more careful or conservative. In our survey, around 71.7% of participants were female, who showed more empathy towards rehabilitation and inclusive hiring. Around 26.4% of participants were male, who were supportive but more concerned about business reputation and job types. It seems that women leaned more towards fairness and giving people with records opportunities. Around 9.4% of participants of our survey were business owners. They were cautious, prioritized safety and the company's image. About 1.9% of participants in our survey were HR managers. They were open to the idea of hiring formerly incarcerated individuals only if evidence of rehabilitation is proven. And about 0.9% of participants in our survey were individuals with a criminal record who had a very strong belief in second chances and that employment will help reduce reoffending. The general trend between these individuals are the persons who had the record were the most optimistic and hopeful towards finding employment. The HR managers were generally supportive but looked out for the company's interests, and the business owners were more guarded and risk conscious when it came to hiring persons with the criminal record. This proves that the biggest barrier to formerly incarcerated individuals when looking for employment would be the employer attitude towards them. Overall, the results show that the most people support giving individuals with a criminal record a fair chance at employment. Younger respondents and women were generally more open to rehabilitation, while older participants, business owners, and HR managers showed more caution, often citing the company's reputation and the crime severity. Many respondents agreed that the time since the conviction has passed matters and that stable jobs reduce reoffending. However, most felt that background checks can unfairly block qualified applicants and that the employer stigma remains the biggest barrier to finding work after incarceration. The single respondent with a criminal record strongly believed in second chances, highlighting how stable work can help rebuild a person's life.
Based on our survey titled Perception of Employment Opportunities for Individuals with Criminal Records, many Bahamians agreed that people who have been incarcerated should be honest and disclose their records when applying for a job. While that shows integrity and transparency are important values in our society, it also highlights that there is still a level of hesitation and stigma towards hiring ex-prisoners. This connects closely to the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act 2022 here in the Bahamas. The act allows individuals who have completed their sentencing to eventually be recognized as rehabilitated persons. After a set period, 10 years for indictable offenses and 5 years for summary offenses, their conviction can become spent, meaning it no longer needs to be disclosed in most situations. However, serious crimes in certain professions such as law enforcement and medicine remains exceptions. This shows that while our laws promote second chances, there is still a cautious attitude, just as our survey revealed. International research shows similar patterns in the United States. The Prison Policy Initiative 2022 found that only 35 to 38% of formerly incarcerated individuals were employed within the first 4 years after release. Another study from the same organization reported an unemployment rate of about 27% among ex-prisoners, higher than any national unemployment rate in the U.S. history. Even during the Great Depression in the United Kingdom, the Ministry of Justice 2024 found that only 19% of former prisoners were employed within 6 weeks of release, and around 31% within 6 months. These statistics clearly show that limited job opportunities after incarceration are a global issue, not just a Bahamian one. According to the RAND Corporation, providing education and vocational training in prison helps individuals gain employment and reduce the likelihood of reoffending. Their research shows that when people leave prisons with skills, they are much more likely to reintegrate successfully and less likely to return to crime, proving that rehabilitation works when opportunity is given. We can also see this from a human perspective. In a 2022 article published by Georgetown University Prisons and Justice Initiative, Orlando Trey Jones III shared his experience after spending 37 years in prison. He describes feeling lost in a fast-changing world, struggling with technology and facing rejection when trying to find work. Even though he was determined to rebuild his life, his story gives a face to the statistics and shows how stigma and lack of support can make re-entry difficult, even decades later. Another international study led by Martri Rivera 2023 entitled The Global Rise of Criminal Background Checks examined 52 countries and found that background checks and hiring are increasing worldwide. While they promote transparency, they often create more barriers for rehabilitated individuals. That finding mirrors our Bahamian survey results, where respondents supported full disclosure of criminal records, showing how honesty, while valued, can also limit employment opportunities. From a bioethical standpoint, this issue ties directly to the principle of justice and beneficence. Justice means ensuring fairness and equal opportunity, while beneficence means helping others to rebuild their lives. If someone has already served their sentence, continuing to deny them fair access to employment becomes an ethical issue that affects both individuals and society.
Let's bring back our guest panelists.
Randy, from an HR perspective, how do Bahamians and residents view this issue that we're speaking on today?
Well, honestly, there's still a stigma. Many employees fear backlash or liability, but we're also seeing a shift. Some companies are open to hiring ex-offenders if they show rehabilitation and honesty.
And what's the current discourse in the Bahamas?
A lot of talk surrounds fairness. Should one mistake cost someone their future? But there's also concern about transparency and safety, especially in jobs involving children or finances.
So, Shelby, how does this issue affect Bahamian society overall?
It affects everything about employment, mental health, even family life. Many of these ex-offenders struggle to reintegrate into society, and especially without income, they tend to rely on relatives and fall into old habits. It becomes larger than a personal issue, and it becomes a social and economic issue.
From an ethical standpoint, I'd say the principle of beneficence supports helping rehabilitated individuals re-enter the workforce. Employment restores dignity and the stability, and that benefits the wider community.
And are there collateral consequences most Bahamians don't realize?
Most definitely. Criminal records can affect access to housing, scholarships, and even immigration status. It is so much more than just a job you're losing. It's a cycle of exhaustion.
We've heard from people who committed serious crimes and faced lasting stigma. But not everyone's story is the same. Some serve short sentences for minor offenses and go on and live quietly without major challenges.
That's right. And we recently spoke with a former inmate who shared his personal experience after a short time in custody. We had a quick Q&A with him. So the first question he was asked was how long he was incarcerated, and his response was it wasn't anything serious and that it was only for 13 weeks. The second question asked was, what was your experience looking for work after your release? His response was that he didn't start looking for work right away. By the time he started looking for work, the matter was already over with. So he didn't have to declare it or anything like that. He didn't experience anything different than usual. So the third question is, do you think job opportunities are limited for people who were once incarcerated? And the response he gave was, this is a direct quote, I mean, people can still get jobs, but it's usually not as many options as others. Like people who went for murder or rape probably can't get a hotel job like I have now. They're more likely to work in small convenience stores or gas stations. I even know a lady who was in for 17 years. She works at a flower shop now. She got beat up by her boyfriend and grabbed the scissors and stabbed him in his neck. He bled out and died. Even though it was self-defense, the family took it further and she ended up in jail for it.
That perspective really adds depth. It reminds us that not every ex-offender's journey is filled with barriers, but it also highlights how stigma and opportunity often depend on the type of offense.
Exactly, Celine. And ethically, it really speaks to justice and proportionality, treating people fairly based on their actual risk and rehabilitation and not just their record.
Yes, and it raises questions about beneficence and non-maleficence. 2, employers have a duty to do good by creating safe workplaces, but they also have a duty not to cause unnecessary harm by unfairly excluding people. Denying someone a chance to work can do real harm, not just to that individual, but to their family and community as well.
That's an important point you raise, because we often seem to focus on protecting society from ex-convicts, but we sometimes forget that a job equals stability. And it's one of the strongest factors in preventing crime in the first place. There has to be a balance between protecting the public and supporting the ex-convict.
So ethically, the goal should be restorative and not just punitive. People like Troy, Kendall, and Shanique made serious mistakes, but if we truly believe in justice, then once they've served their sentence, society has a responsibility to allow them to reintegrate safely, responsibly, and with dignity.
Exactly. And true justice doesn't end when a sentence does. It's about how we treat people afterwards. Everyone deserves a fair chance and a fresh start. So we've heard stories of pain, resilience, and redemption tonight. Clearly, this issue isn't just black and white.
Yes, ethically, we're balancing justice, autonomy, and care. Society must protect its people, but also give room for growth and forgiveness.
The moral takeaway: true justice isn't about punishment, it's about restoration.
And when we allow people to work and contribute again, we're building safer communities, not weaker ones.
Also, employers can help by creating conditional hiring programs, giving people second chances with proper monitoring and mentorship.
And before we close, here are a few policy recommendations that we came up with for the Bahamas. We should be introducing certificates of relief to recognize rehabilitation, create limited scope background checks for certain jobs, expand sealing and expunging laws for minor or juvenile offenses.
Well said. We'd like to say thank you to our guests, our callers, and our viewers for tuning in. Remember, redemption starts when we open the door, not when we lock it.
Until next time, Bahamas, stay wise, stay kind, and keep questioning the island's dilemmas.